Hi everyone, this is Girish, and in this presentation I will talk about AI project skill set. So let's get started. This is part 1 of AI project skill set. Let's look at the agenda. We will talk about what is programming language, and then look at Python versus R and notebook versus IDE, and then best practices. What is programming language? The software. As we know, a program will take input, like it can be number, character, text, and will process it in a mathematical or logical form to produce output, like it can print result or generate outcome. So basically a program is a set of instruction that a computer follows, and those instruction set are created using programming language. So basically programming language is essentially a problem solving tool. There are many programming language types, with each having its own style and approach. So whether it is high-level language such as Java, C, C++, Python or R, and assembly language, which has instruction set, mnemonics, and symbolic labels. And then there is machine language, which is mostly in binary format or binary code. And so each has its own use case based on level of control required for both system management and hardware devices. So from application perspective, as to what makes it run is software and hardware. And there can be different programming level which overlaps, based on each layer of abstraction, from application software like browser, spreadsheet, word processor, social media app, mobile app, to programming software, which helps to do programming like API, SDK, framework, compiler, assembler, interpreter, IDE, system software, which is at the level of operating system, device driver, and management of devices. And then finally the hardware, which is laptop, desktop, keyboard, and printer. So let's also look at few of the programming type. There are a variety of programming type or paradigm as they are called, but here are the most common ones. Object-oriented programming type follows bottom-up approach and consists of objects and classes, with each object encapsulating its own data and methods. Python is one of the popular object-oriented programming language along with Java and C++. Procedural programming type, follows top-down approach and consists of set of functions or subroutines using procedures to operate on data structure. C language along with Pascal are example of procedural programming type. Functional programming type, treats computation as the evaluation of mathematical functions and emphasizes on the application of functions. R is considered a functional programming language, but it also has flavor, or it overlaps, you can say, with object-oriented approach. Scripting programming type basically allows control of software applications and are interpreted from source code. Most popular ones are JavaScript, Shell script, PHP, and Perl. And overall, programming is not just about using programming language, but it involves various core activities such as creating flowcharts, pseudocode, refining algorithm, and documentation, which enables software highly maintainable and extensible in long run. So let's look at Python versus R, the language. Python and R are the topmost programming language used for AI and data science project implementation. Let's look at some of the differences between Python and R. Python is open source, R is also open source. Python is object-oriented, R is mostly functional-oriented. Python is general purpose language. It can be used for application development, web development, along with AI and data science. R is considered as statistical language, and its primary use case is for AI and data science. So some fun facts. Python is easier to learn. Our learning curve is higher. Python was released in 1989, earlier than R. R was released in 1992. Python is widely used in industry and research. R is used by academics and scientists. Python is more popular, of course, and R also has a very strong user base. So let's look at some of the libraries, which are supported by Python and R. For data analysis, Python has NumPy and Pandas. R has dplyr and tidyr. For data visualization, Python has matplotlib, seaborn. R has ggplot2. For machine learning, Python definitely has the fundamental scikit-learn framework. R has caret and rpart. Python for deep learning, TensorFlow, Keras, PyTorch. R does support Keras, along with it uses DeepNet and MLBench packages. And overall, it is about programming practice, with both Python and R having strong community support and variety of packages and libraries readily available for a variety of tasks related to AI and data science project activities. So let's look at Notebook versus IDE, the editor. Notebook is basically a web-based interactive interface. It can run on local machine or over the cloud. It facilitates and enforces documentation while doing programming. And the default file saved is .ipnynb. It supports text, elements, and images. Let's look at IDE. IDE is a desktop-based interface, mostly runs on local machine. It does have cloud version also. You need to use some documentation tool. It does support a lot of documentation mechanism. Default file saved is .py, which is for Python. And the source code editor debugger environment is a very powerful feature of IDE. Here are some of the examples of Notebook and IDE. The Jupyter Lab. Jupyter is on local machine. It is still a web-based interface. Jupyter Lab is over the cloud. Google Colab, as we all know, it's over the cloud. Kaggle Notebook, it is on the cloud. It supports both Python and R language. IDE, Spider, PyCharm, Visual Studio Code are all for Python. R Studio is specifically for R language. Overall, following coding standards in any programming language results in highly maintainable and reusable software. So let's look at some of the best practices for the quality. Best practices enables uniformity and ability for any other programmer or developer to understand that code. Here are a few of them which are at minimum followed will help produce quality software, such as using naming convention for variable and function name, adding meaningful comments for each block or line of code, following programming language indentation guidelines, including configuration logging level, performing unit testing for each block or line of code, along with regular clean code check-in into version control system. So let's briefly look at each of them. Naming convention makes it easy to understand the objective of code. Meaningful comments makes code more maintainable and extensible. Code indentation, makes code readable with interpretation of execution path. Logging level makes it easier to trace flow of code and assist in debugging. Unit testing makes code more robust and helps detect bug early in lifecycle. Version control makes backup of code and helps track changes. To summarize, Smart Street AI team has knowledge and expertise on AI project skillset related to Python and R required for AI and data science project. Thank you for watching this and looking forward to connect and collaborate. Thanks again and have a nice day. Bye.